Hi, I'm Sarah Gabriel, former special education teacher turned social entrepreneur and founder of In Good Company. We help businesses build thriving teams by giving them the confidence and tools to effectively lead employees with disabilities. This podcast is for leaders creating interability workplaces. Together, we'll dig into what it takes to lead with both heart and business savvy and build workplaces where contributors of all abilities are not just included, but essential. Welcome to In Good Company. Hey everyone, welcome back. Joining us today is Andy Davenport, longtime baker, storyteller, and the founder of Crispy King Treats. For 20 years, Andy has been known for his crowd-pleasing crispy cakes, but in 2020, he took things to the next level by launching Cakes and Conversations, a YouTube series that amplifies the voices of guests with over 20 different diagnoses and disabilities through shared stories and sweet creations, which I have seen, and they're super fun. What started as a show became a movement. After hearing repeated calls from his guests for meaningful work and connection, Andy launched Crispy King with a bold mission to lower the disability unemployment rate by 1% through an integrated workforce model, blending team members of all abilities and proving that inclusive business is good business. You can grab Crispy King treats online using the discount code IGC10, from cakes to crispy assortments, all shipping nationwide, or find them in a select storefront like Men Coffee in Atlanta. And you can even hire the Crispy Cart for events if you're nearby. Check it all out at crispykingtreats.com. Andy, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here.
You've got a pretty great story, and so I hope that intro quickly captured the highlights, but I know we're going to dig more into the details in today's conversation. For starters, just tell us how you got here to Crispy King. You started out as a YouTube channel,
Right.
But even before that, why did you choose the topic that you did for this YouTube channel?
Yeah, for 20 years, I've been involved in the disability community, serving through an organization called Young Life Capernaum. And so I've been a part of the lives of a load of my good friends who have different intellectual and developmental disabilities. And even before that, my next door neighbor was a little person, and she was my babysitter, and my good buddy, Johnny Stallings, who had Down syndrome, lived down the street. So I was really blessed with the opportunity to be raised around people of all abilities and didn't realize there was a big difference in us. I just thought that's how most people live life. I'm really grateful for that. So that launched me into this disability community where I have discovered a lot, maybe the best version of myself when I'm with them and discovering their gifts. And so, yeah, over quarantine, we started a YouTube show. I think a couple of weeks in, I got bored and started thinking. I took a class on how to do a YouTube show, and I don't even really know why I did that. But at the end of it, they said, part of the challenge is you have to start a YouTube channel. And I didn't know what I could do, but I knew that I could make Rice Krispie cakes because I'd been making those since my 20s and making them for all my kids' birthday parties. And so I invited my buddy Michael, who has Down syndrome. We've been friends since 2005. And said, hey, come over to the house. We're going to try something. And he came over and we got in front of the camera, and he wanted to make a WWE wrestling belt out of Rice Krispie treat. And I asked him questions about who he was and about Down syndrome. He was very honest and transparent and fun, and he danced. And I thought, people need to know Michael. So we did another show and another show. And through that, their stories, many of them talked about how they want relationships. They have love and desires the same as we all do. And they want community and friendships, and they wanted independent living. But what I noticed is many of them wanted a job, but struggled finding a job. They wanted what comes with that, the community and the financial freedom that comes with that, and the independence and the dignity and accomplishment. There's so much that is gained from employment, and they were longing for that. And we thought, well, let's see if we could do our part. We make a great cake, and we learned how to make delicious crispy treats and different flavors. And here we are today trying to cause a movement.
I love it. And in your mission, I already referenced it in the beginning, but tell us why the 1%. Where did that number come from and what does that mean?
I think you have to have tangible goals, and that may seem
Hmm.
crazy. 1%, I think statistically in the US, that'd be about 70,000 people. So I don't
Hmm.
intend to employ 70,000, but that's where that
Andy,
whole,
yeah, and back up a little bit further. 1% of what?
I
What
would
is that
say,
1% of?
we want to lower the unemployment rate for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities by 1%. And that 1%
Hmm.
currently is over 80%. And when unemployment's over 80%, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We thought, what if we did 1%? That seems attainable. I think if we say we want to lower it by 50% and people realize that's hundreds of thousands, that can be overwhelming. And a goal that is, we can dream big, but we need goals that are tangible. So that's around 70,000 people. So we thought, let's try 1% and see what happens. I believe that, you know, 1% ultimately starts with one. So we
Mm,
want people who run a business to not feel like they need to employ everyone with a disability. They don't need an entire workforce like that. Truly, if we're going to reach 1%, it starts with one. And so hire one person. Hire them for a few months at a time. See if they're a good fit. There's so many resources out there to help you move in that direction. And statistically, again, it will increase your business. I think 78% of people are more likely to shop at a business that employs people with disabilities. I'm like, if you're
wow.
in sales, that's a great stat. I'm like, move in that direction if you're looking for sales, or how it increases retention in your workforce because the culture changes and other employees don't want to leave. Anyone who's running a business knows that one of your greatest expenses is not having a high retention rate. When you lose employees, you spend so much to find and train and keep them. And the benefits are endless. I think it's the unknown that's scary for most business owners.
I completely agree. One of my favorite statistics was a study that Special Olympics reported last year saying employees with intellectual and developmental disabilities have shown to stay in their roles 50% longer than their non disabled peers. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. This is a
Yeah,
powerhouse talent pool.
right.
I often say I say it's overlooked and underestimated because what you were saying, it's unknown. We don't know what we don't know. And historically in our country, we haven't seen the full capability of what this group has to bring to our workforce. But groups like you at Crispy King, you are the proof of concept. And so I'd love to hear from you. What does a day in the life at Crispy King look like when you're busy at work fulfilling orders? What are the tasks that are accomplished? What are the roles that are filled? Who's on your team? Give us a picture.
Yeah, the underestimated is so important. I think when you think about what happens in our kitchen, a lot of failure happens. And I would say that is the greatest gift of our workforce and it's not because you have a disability. It just allows everyone to make space for failure because we're trying things most people aren't trying. And you do have to make a little space for failure, but that's where we're learning and growing. And I think that's why it's working because everyone, it lightens the load. There's not as much stress, but a typical day in our kitchen is we want no more than 50% of our workforce to have a disability. If we wanted to statistically stay on track, we'd pick about 4 to 5% really, but that doesn't make a splash. And we're trying to cause a movement. And so we want around 50% of our team to have a disability, but we're not hiring them in the kitchen because it's a nice thing to do. We're a for-profit business and we need to be profitable. And we're not going to hire them just to wash a dish because that feels nice. We're going to do it because you're the best dishwasher I've ever seen. And matter of fact, you love it. You show up excited. You do it with excellence. You make sure there's no soap left in there because someone might get sick one day if there's soap in that treat. And you consider that an important task. But we're going to hire Owen, might be in the kitchen, and he values the amount of Krispies we put in. We have some employees that have a visual impairment, and it's hard to see on a measuring cup where 6 cups is or where 8 cups is or 2 cups. So even if we mark it big with a Sharpie or put tape on there, that can still be a challenge. So we adapt that and put someone in a role, our utility player who's going to be filling up the crispy cup in a way they can do that. We have a young man who has some sensory challenges and he says he doesn't like things sticky. if you don't like things sticky, a Rice Krispie treat is a little bit challenging for you. I remember we had him on the show when we were doing Cakes and Conversations. I mean, we stepped in front of the camera. We had gone through all the pre-work, and he looks over at me and I said, anything else? Anything I need to know about you? He goes, I don't really like things that are sticky. And I'm thinking, we are about to hit record. And how are we going to do this? And I said, hey, how do you feel wearing gloves? Because at that time on the show, we didn't care. I mean, I wasn't going to eat that. We're sitting at home with them. If they wanted to touch it, we'd put butter on our hands. And he said, that'd be great. So gloves were okay for him. And once we did that, he pushed through, and it was really interesting because the feeling of butter was a challenge for him. And I couldn't fathom. I was thinking, why would butter be a challenge? But that texture was hard. And if you go back and watch Luke's show, you'll see him right before I asked him, do you want to cut this butter? Right before he grabbed it, he looks off camera at his mom, who was sitting off to the side in our kitchen, because he took a moment to decide, am I going to be brave? And to do something that was really hard. And he then goes down, grabs the butter, and he cuts it, and he picks it up, and he puts it in. And we got to watch him do something he didn't think he could do. He had underestimated himself, and then was brave that day. That's what I love in our kitchen. So everyone's making and creating packaging. Packaging can be hard if you have fine motor skill challenges. So some of our friends do stickers, but they don't put them in the bags. Some can do the heat seal. I hope that one day, if I'm honest, we never package again, because it takes a long time with our group. And let's buy a packaging machine and let's just handcraft all our treats. And then we have a whole nother team that works events. So when we go out, whether you hired us to show up at your corporation and you pre-bought some treats and we're handing them out, or maybe we're sharing about disability employment there, or maybe it's a festival where we're selling treats and handing out samples and working. Those are different skill sets. Some people are great with people.
Yeah.
Some people just prefer to be in the kitchen and need routine.
You hit the nail on the head with different skill sets. It takes all kinds of skill sets to run any kind of business. And I love the commitment to excellence that you talked about, going all the way back to the dishwasher. It's caring for your customers and not even just wanting to create a great product, but a safe one. There are high standards that we have to uphold in food handling and, everything that comes with that. And to have someone who's doing it with their full self and they understand what's at stake with their work. Like, it is important. And I love to hear that story. And then, all the way to the other end where you have the employees who are interacting with your customers with the cart. I think that's wonderful. And I've heard other businesses talk about how when you're able to get into the community and be face to face with your customers, what a wonderful opportunity, not only for your employees, but for the customers who may not have grown up with an experience like yours or mine, where we grew up with friends and classmates and neighbors with disabilities. So great opportunities all around. And to go back to the story about your friend with the sensory challenges and all it took was a pair of gloves. What an easy solution.
Right.
It would have been easy for you to say, I'm stumped. I guess let's skip this step, or I'll do it for you.
Right.
But what a simple moment that you could just say, oh, there's another way to do this. And it's very simple.
Well, I think that's one of the obstacles people who run businesses face. They feel like, I just don't know how to change something, or this is how we do it. How you do it actually might not even be the best way. You're just comfortable. And you have to be comfortable being a little uncomfortable. And you have to be willing to be innovative and creative. Some of our changes along the way, we were in a rut and didn't even know it. And then we had to adapt to someone, and it expedited the process. We learned new tools that we've now changed things across the board. I think that when we're creating in the kitchen, and again, we're in a food industry, and you're asking about, like, we have someone washing dishes. The reality is, somebody asked me, a business asked 2 weeks ago, said, if you see people with disabilities serving, in which roles do you believe they can do in this business? I said, well, what roles do you have? To make an assumption that someone with a disability can't do a role is maybe not the best starting point. Let's just assume ability coming in. Let's go in and go, okay, you can do this. I'm not going to put my 19-year-old son on details. He doesn't have a disability. He's just a 19-year-old boy who ain't going to take care of the details. He's going to forget about it and something's going to get dropped. It doesn't mean he doesn't have incredible gifts. If we need someone who's going to be intentional, I'm going to put him in that. He's going to be very intentional with someone. He's going to be very compassionate and loving toward others. But let's figure out what he can do. He will be creative, but he may not be detailed. Well, in the same way, someone with a disability may come into your business and find the task that others despise, and they may love it. They may come to life in those areas. So let's be creative and think outside the box and figure out how to set each person up. And in reality, not everyone will work out. We've had people in our kitchen that I think, it's just not a great fit for them. They're not great in the kitchen. Well, I've been fired from a job before because I wasn't a good fit. I've left a job because it wasn't a good fit for me. I mean, that's adulting. That is a reality in life, and we want them to live in that reality.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important points to make that people in this discussion can tiptoe around. And it's the less heartwarming truth that I think is worth saying if it's not a fit and you've done everything you can to see if there's a different way. Like I always say, start by just defining what needs to be done. And then you can start getting creative and think, how can it be done? If it really just isn't a fit at the end of the day, or if the essential elements of the task cannot be completed, or like you said, there's just not interest, it's not a fit. That's the human experience, no matter the ability or skill set. For many individuals with disabilities who come to work for companies like yours, it might be their first job. And part of the development is learning how to take a no, and how gracious it must be for them to go through that experience with someone who is compassionate and caring and still believes in them finding the right fit. And so that's a hard lesson, but a good one. And for employers, hopefully encouraging to know that it's kind of the other side of the coin to, this isn't charity. This is real work. They can do real work. It's not charity. So don't keep someone in a role that's not good for them or for the company.
All the time. That's not just a disability conversation. That's a business life and organization conversation. Don't keep someone if they're not the right fit, because you're actually keeping them from doing what they could be doing better. I lead maybe on the high end of assuming ability. I'm going to push, because we know that when we raise expectations, majority of the time they reach and exceed them.
Did you know there are nearly 200 small businesses in the U.S. who are on a mission to employ individuals with disabilities? And we want to send shoppers their way. That's where you come in. Join the In Good Company passport game and support businesses that are moving the needle for disability employment. Here's how you play. Choose 3 businesses featured on our passport, snap photos with each visit or online purchase, and share them on your Instagram. Tag IGC with us and the business you supported, and we'll send you a prize. Grab your passport and instructions in the show notes or on our Instagram page today.
We had a team member the other day. I said, hey, why do you like working at Krispy Kreme? He goes, because you're the man, Andy. And I thought, if you want to be encouraged, get Owen on your team. He's he's going to make you feel good. I go, yeah, but why do you like working here? He goes, I like making treats for other people. And I like working with Kel, and he's pointing to everybody, and Michael and Asher. And that's it. If you love the people you work with and they make you a better person, you're going to be willing to try any task. The task is not the obstacle. So if people aren't employing someone with a disability, they might have a people issue. And if you want to change your people issue, let's change the people and let's see what happens in there, because our people love to come to work. And that's why we keep going, because we're trying to grow a business, but at the same time, they would love to work as much as we'd let them, because they just love it. We show up at events. In every event we go to, other vendors will come to us and say, man, if only I had him working for me. That's when I want to go, well, let's talk about that, because I'd love for you to consider it. But I think
You can hire people.
You can do this. We want to be a proof of concept, which is not easy. So we get our butts kicked every now and then trying things that are pretty hard, but it's worth it.
Well, let's go there for a minute. What has been a challenge for you as a business with a strong mission, but also a commitment to operating as a business of excellence.
Yeah. So as a for-profit business, you have to be profitable. You don't get the same tax breaks. We currently use a shared kitchen space, which is a challenge for us. We share a kitchen with someone who might be in there making a chicken dinner, and there's different smells and sensory, and they may have the flames going when we're not using the flames, and there's distractions. And it's just not a great setup for us. If we had our own space, if we were a nonprofit, we'd have our own space. Probably have a packaging machine because I'd go raise money and we'd raise that support. We would buy all of that. And then in the end, when a business said, well, why should we employ them? You're a nonprofit. How can you tell me that we'll be profitable? And we feel a responsibility to be profitable. And that is a challenge. We don't get this. There are tax breaks for employing people with disabilities. So if you're listening today and you're thinking, well, what's one of the benefits? Well, there is a tax break. I would not say it's enough tax break for you to go, oh, I'm just going to do that. And don't do it because it's a nice thing just to do that. That with somebody, you need to check your heart if that's what you're looking for in life is a tax break of why you're employing someone. But it is something that's out there. But one of our challenge is figuring out how to be profitable. And because we, like everyone else, food industry is not a high margin. And we are trying to figure out how to bootstrap this and do it well. And then when you employ someone with disability, we might need an extra team member on in there, not because of accommodations, but because we realize, hey, we've set them up to do a job, but we actually need another job done at the same time. Or maybe when we bring them on, they're only at 50% because it will take time to build them into the team member we need them to be. So that can cost more and take a little more time. Uh, you have to build around that. Fatigue. One things I've learned is a lot of our employees who have not had a job, if we ask them to work an 8-hour day, I mean, I can remember my first job out of college. Oh gosh. I mean, I was doing sales at a workout facility where like the Dallas Mavericks worked out. I'm selling memberships. And my first month, about 1:32 in the afternoon would hit. And I'm like, I need a nap. I mean, one time I remember my boss walking in, I'm asleep on my desk, just my head down. I just had not worked an 8-hour, 10-hour work day at that point in
Yeah.
my life. I didn't know what that was like.
Stamina is
Stamina is a big deal. And that's
it
where a
is
lot of
for
our
all of us.
for all of us. And so I would just say, remember that even if they come in and they're 40 years old, it might be the first time you've asked them to work on their feet at that pace for that long. So we then have to have different shifts until they've shown they can build their endurance. We want to take breaks when it's necessary. But if I'm honest about this, everyone, not disability focused, everyone who works in our kitchen who comes in says we move really fast. And I think most people would be really surprised at our pace because it's timed, because we're in food and we're flying. But everyone can keep up that we've hired because they think that's the norm. But there's also a fatigue level. You have to figure out stamina. These are all the challenges, but none that are massive. I've not had one person I've hired that I've worried about, oh, is something inappropriate? Or are they going to say something crazy? Or I think a lot of people don't employ someone because they're going, what if I get sued? What if I do it wrong? Well, you're going to do it wrong. You're going to use the wrong words. Show yourself some grace on that. You're going to have some challenges. There will be some errors. I remember my friend Michael carrying from the freezer out some already made cinnamon roll treats, which take us a while because of the icing we put on them. And then they all spilled onto the floor. And
Oh, no.
you just think in your mind, I go as a business owner, I look at cost, time, how we still have to go back and do this, who's going to do all these things go through. But in reality, I've spilled so much on the floor, or I've messed up a recipe. Last week, I messed up 10 batches with one decision because I wasn't focused. And we make space for failure. Those are some of our challenges along the way.
Yeah, those are some good call outs. And again, just to normalize, I think so many times in this conversation, it seems almost silly how many times we say, that's not even a disability thing, that's a human
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Making mistakes. I had a friend this morning with cerebral palsy say the number of times people just assume I can't think at the same level as them or do the same tasks. And she says, I would appreciate it if they would just assume competence until proven otherwise. And so I think you're doing a good job of that and remembering, anytime someone else makes a mistake on the team, whether it's disability related or not, we're all subject to that, to making mistakes and losing focus.
Michael always says, Michael will say, no one's perfect. And I'm like, you're right. No
True.
one's perfect. And so let's just
That
own it.
simple. I also love again, I say creative thinking. I hope someday it'll just be called thinking. When you talked about addressing some of the challenges like stamina, just knowing that and remembering there was a time when you were entering the workforce and had to build up stamina as well, you create space for that. So when you have newcomers to your team and you maybe schedule them for shorter shifts until they can work up and keep up with the full pace of your operation. I think that's a great way not to rule people out, but give them the opportunity to get there, and have the willingness to invest in them as they ramp up and the patience to know they're not going to be performing up to speed right away. But again, who does? So I think those are some really great concrete example of ways that you've accounted for that. You're creating a space where they can come in and catch up with you guys and then work full speed ahead. So I love to hear that. What advice do you have for businesses who might be a little bit behind where you're at as Crispy King? They're just starting out. We can maybe assume they're also in the food industry. And I think one thing that you've done really well at Crispy King, at least from what I can see, is you've got a good following. People are fans of your treats. How did you build that up in your early days when you've got a product, you've invested in all this equipment and all these ingredients, and it's expensive and you need people to buy your product? How did you find that first following, and how have you grown it since then?
That's a great question. I think you have to be a learner if you're starting a business. I mean, we are constantly learning from others. One of our core values is excellence. We feel like our product has to be excellent, that each time someone tastes it, we can't afford to have a subpar product. If someone buys our product because they found out someone with a disability made it, that's good. But for us, that's not great. We want them to buy our product because they love it. And we want them to come back because it was the best they've had. We know this, if someone takes a bite of one of our crispy treats and is like, oh, I mean, you can see their face at the sampling table if they come in and they love it so much. And whatever their view is of our treat is going to be their view of someone with a disability. And if they think, whoa, that was unbelievable, it can elevate how they see someone with a disability. If we put down a subpar treat, their view of disability will either remain here or possibly even drop to here. So we feel a responsibility to keep it at a high level. And because of that, I think our treats, our product has told a lot of the story. We would show up at events. We tried to build the social media. I'm way too old to be doing social media. I need someone younger and more current. And we always laugh when I'm on there, but we're trying to get out with social media, but ultimately we want to tell the story. We did a focus group early on, and with our focus group, we did a tasting, and I was sold that I don't want to be disability driven. I said, I want to be product driven, then people, then purpose. And everyone tasted, and we had a discussion, and they filled out a document. And at the end in the conversation, 95% of them said that we should not lead with our product. We should lead with our people. And they said,
Hmm.
Andy, people will purchase from you because of your mission, but they will only purchase twice and more if the product matches that. They said everyone will buy something once because someone with a disability made it or there's a great mission, but they won't be forever fans if the product doesn't exceed that. And so we're open about the disability employment. We want to talk about the movement of lowering it by 1% and that it starts with one because we know that will invite them in. But what keeps them, what has made super fans is the fact that the product, they think about the product when they're not with us. Our friend Owen, at one of our events, we decided one time, and I use Owen as an example a lot because he's truly a party in a body, and he is a hard worker, but he sees the best in everyone. I mean, everyone feels better because of him. And we were at an event and we said, you know what, let's do this. If you spend $25, we're just going to give him a Crispy King t-shirt. And so we put up a sign that said if you did that, which meant you had to buy 7 treats because it was like $28 how the math worked out. And we sell 1 treat for 5 or 3 for 12, or you could get 7 treats and get a shirt. Our team upsells like no one I've ever seen. And we didn't teach them to do that. If you walked up and said, "Oh, I'll take a peanut butter chocolate," they'll say, "Great, pick 2 more. It's 3 for 12." In their mind, you're going to pick 3 for 12. And
Is
typically,
a skill.
we didn't teach them this. I just watch them do it. But then Owen took it up a notch. They'll say, "Hey, if you get, once they get 3, he goes, if you get 7, you can be in the club." And they go, "What's the club?" He goes and he walks them over. "You could get one of these shirts. You could be in the club." Well, I didn't even know we had a club. I'm like, "What's the club?" But Owen was so confident about this Krispy King club that people are like, "I want to be in the club." And people would buy 7 and get a shirt. And then one day a guy came to pick up an order. He ordered instead of shipping for pickup. And he walks up and he had a Krispy King shirt on. He goes, "I have my club shirt on." And I thought, we did nothing to intentionally build a super fan. But Owen, being who he is, invited people into what we're doing. He didn't say, "Hey, we're Krispy King and you're out here." You see, what we realize is when this whole thing started, I believe that every person with and without disability was created just beautifully. And we believe we want to create treats in the same way. And we say every creation is beautiful and everyone deserves to be treated like royalty. So let's start treating. And when we say let's start treating, most people think we're saying let's just start treating on some delicious treats, which we are. But what we're saying is let's start treating everyone like royalty. Let's no matter what their ability or disability is, let's just treat everyone like royalty and see what happens. And our team does that better than anyone. If that's a core value for us, they've owned it. And when people walk up for a sample, they stay, I think, because they love the treat, but they stay because they feel better about themselves. We teach our team to ask questions. Don't just talk about yourself. Be curious. Ask questions about them. Get to know that person. Call them by name. And they will show up. We'll be at an event in 2 weeks that we go to. We've probably been there 4 or 5 times. And people will show up early to get particular treats before we sell out because they want to come be with our team now. And
Wow, I think your
I think
club is getting big.
the club, hopefully the club is growing. Now we might need to do something official with the club because right now it's just Owen and a T-shirt. But it's exciting to see what they can do. I wouldn't have done that. So you want a benefit of employing someone with disability? That's a benefit. We did not create that, never imagined it. They thought outside the box. And now we're trying to figure out how do we leverage that? And how do we put Owen in charge of this club, whatever the club is? How do we build a community, a gathering? One of the expenses for us when we do events is we always have to have an extra person at our event who's available to talk to families. And that was, we didn't account for that when we started. Families who are impacted by disability, whether they have a child or an adult child or somebody, they linger at our event tent or at our cart. They just hang out and they want to talk and they want to share their story. And when we're doing sales, we're moving and going and samples, and we feel it's our opportunity and responsibility to be listeners, to invite them in. You read that mission statement that we want to lower disability unemployment by 1%. But I think what we do is we sell treats and offer hope. That's it. We had a young family came up to an event we did in Noonan, Georgia. We had the cart out there, and I was with Michael, who has Down syndrome. It might have been one of our very first events with our cart. And there's a young boy who they carried up with him, who was probably around 2 years old, who had Down syndrome. And whew, it was so beautiful because Michael loves kids, and Michael's in his 40s and has Down syndrome and is one of my best friends. And Michael reached out to say, "Hey, can I hold him?" And this boy was just like moving and shaking in the parents' arms. And I thought, most people aren't going to hand their kid to Michael. Maybe they're scared, or can someone with Down syndrome hold a baby, or are they safe? All these questions when you don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the first time I had a beer with Michael. I thought, can someone with Down syndrome drink beer? Come to find out he can. But all these things, and Michael reached out his hand. And that little boy reached for Michael and they let him hold him. And this boy, before he was in Michael's arms, was moving and shaking. And when he got in Michael's arms, he laid his head on Michael's shoulder. And I mean, the parents wept. I'm a hot mess at this point, and I'm watching this. And then this little boy looks back and he's this close to Michael's face and he puts his hands on Michael's face. And it's truly, I'm watching him look at Michael and say, "You're like me. You're just like me." And he played with his face. And that family comes to see us at that event every time. And the second time they came, I had to ask him, I said, "Hey, I have some pictures. I'll send you. I don't know if you can post a picture on this podcast, but if somebody wants to see what hope looks like, I'll send you that picture." But I asked the family, I said, "Hey, I just have to ask you this. I haven't posted your pictures because that was a very intimate moment. I asked, can I share this story?" And I said, "And I'm really curious. I felt like when Michael held your son, that hope fell over you that day, that you had hope for your son. Is that a fair statement?" And they said, "That's exactly how we felt." And I thought, okay, we're going to show up again and keep selling some treats. It's running a business is not easy, but when you get to be a part of offering hope, I want to keep going. It gives you another day. And that's what we're doing. So is our treat delicious? Yes. Do I think it's the best crispy treat out there? Without a doubt. Are we very intentional with how we handcraft them? Yes. And will we have more products? Of course. And can you be in the club? Yes. But if you want to be a part of offering hope to your company, employ someone with a disability. It will transform your business, your community, and it'll transform your own life.
Andy, I have no more questions. That is, you have made my job a little too easy. Gosh, all I want to say is I think I need Owen to come run sales for me. I need more sales like that.
Yes.
And I want Michael just to come be a part of my team every day and give me hope when my hope is dwindling. And wow, all I can say is wow. I love your business and I love your mission. I love your team. Love your treats. You are the proof of concept, your team. And I'm so thankful I'm thankful for your willingness to keep showing up when it's hard. And to be present and do the things that don't always even make sense, like overstaffing sometimes, just so you have the ability to slow down and engage with people rather than just hurrying through a busy line. You're engaging with your club members and future club members in meaningful ways. That's hard to package. That's hard to put a label on. It's just something that you and your team are living out. And I think you're going to blow past that 1%. Give it some time. There are other change makers and people that are holding hope and living it out who are with you, and maybe they'll cover another 1% and another 1%. And together, I think our world is changing, and I think our workforce is we're being made more complete when they are with us and they are there in the midst, not on the edge. My final question for you, I do have one more, and it's a fun one that I love to ask. In this space of moving the needle for unemployment, who's another business that's working on this solution that you admire, that you'd like to share the spotlight with?
Oh gosh, there's so many. What I've learned happens, and I don't fall in this category, but you watch all these parents who have an adult child with a disability who turn 22, they leave high school, they feel like there's nothing available, and they start a business. So they can employ their child and those friends of their child. And because of that, there's a lot of small businesses all over the country trying to figure this out. You mentioned Mend Coffee earlier, and one of the things I like about Jay and Catherine is just who they are as people, but they're doing integrated employment as well. So they're building integrated employment where you have people with and without disabilities working together, not just complete all disability employment. And I value that. And Jay had said to me one time, most of us don't share what we're learning because we're afraid we're doing it wrong. And he goes, and we don't want to be told to stop or be told we're doing it wrong. There is a fear. Even those of us who are trying to pioneer and move ahead, and the Jay and Catherine Wolfson, Men Coffee, and their whole team. I mean, Leah and Ash. I mean, they have a whole team of people there. It can be hard to talk about what we're doing, even on a podcast like this, because you think someone out there will say, well, you used the wrong words, or what are you doing about disability employment benefits, and how do you navigate that? And are you really respecting this person, or are you overworking them, or are you breaking a law we don't even know is a law? And there's so much that's unknown. And it can be really scary. And they put words to it and are just moving forward. Brightside Cafe in Alpharetta, moving forward. Happy Brew in Jacksonville, moving forward. Belong Kitchen in Houston, Texas, they're moving forward. Howdy Homemade in Dallas, and now in all their chains, they're moving forward. I think of those people who are saying yes, that are just moving forward in the unknown. It is scary, and there will be failure, but there is hope. And we're all out there just trying to sell something and offer hope. So go find those businesses that are doing that. And they're all over the country. So you can't say, well, we don't have that in our town. I would bet you do. Be curious, ask great questions. And then the last thing I would just say is, in our journey to 1%, join us. It starts with one. So consider adding one person in the next 6 months to your team who has a disability. And if you don't know how to do that, there's a lot of resources, and we'd love to help you get there.
We're one of those resources. Well, let's keep moving forward. I think that's the best way to end it today. Andy, thank you again. And everybody listening, shop Crispy King. They have a discount code for you, IGC10. They have all kinds of flavors. I'm a fan of the chocolate peanut butter and the rainbow sprinkles. Those are my two favorites. Let's cheer them on. Let's join the club. Thanks for joining us on In Good Company. I hope this conversation gave you what you needed to take your next step. Special thanks to Georgia Tech's Institute for Leadership and Social Impact for the recording space and the coffee. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe, share, or leave a review to help more leaders like you find us. Want more tools, frameworks, or a community of like-minded advocates? Head over to igcwithus.com to learn more. We'd love to connect. Until next time, keep building what wasn't there before. You're in good company.